one of the things that
Yeah.
people voted for with this new administration was no more wars, no more useless wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months in, we're bombing Iran.
Yeah. No, I look, I'm not here to argue whether, I know there's a lot of people that say we should not be doing any of this shit, right? We
Right.
shouldn't be, we shouldn't have been in Iraq. We shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. We shouldn't, gone to Vietnam. We shouldn't have, okay, fine. There's a lot of people that argue that we should just sit in a bubble because the world will happen and it won't impact us, right? Some of the shit that happens outside, the U.S. borders will come back in a massively, serious way and bite us in the ass. So, could a conflagration out in the Middle East, if we don't take any part in it, could it impact U.S. national security interests? Well, yeah, it could. So, but it's a call. I get it. People are saying draw the curtains and we shouldn't be at war and we shouldn't be doing any of this and we shouldn't support Israel. And what are we doing? I understand the mindset. I just don't agree with it. But, I think so. I think the limited participation in terms of providing the necessary munitions to attack those sites, again, wasn't a surprise. Don't disagree with the decision. I just think, we need to be pragmatic about how much damage we've done and what the potential is for us having to revisit this whole issue, right? So
The thing is, people are so skeptical about motivations now. They're so skeptical about public narratives, why we're doing this and why we're doing that. And I think one of the things that's important, hearing it from a person like yourself that's spent most of your lifetime involved in this, that there are things we really shouldn't be meddling in every part of the world, but
Right.
sometimes we have to meddle.
There are occasions, there are times. It would be great if we lived in a world where we could just worry about ourselves. But that's not, maybe 250 years ago it was, right? Because it would take the Armada a long time to make its way across the ocean. But, shit happens with remarkable speed now. And I just think it's an idealistic idea that you can ignore what's happening and you can just say, we're only focusing on us. We're not going to get involved in anything that happens out there. I agree. There's a lot of things that we don't need to be involved in, right? Looking back on Iraq, looking back on Afghanistan, right? Now, Afghanistan should have been a surgical move, right? We should have gone into Tora Bora, blown the shit out of that, tried to get, bin Laden. And then we should have said, look, if you do this again, meaning if you let your country be a sandbox for the terrorists, we're going to come back here and do this again. And then we should have gotten the hell out and not worried about, well, maybe we can build a stable federal-style government in Afghanistan, which has never happened, in which we
Right.
could have looked at what the Soviets did and said, yeah, it's not going to work. So there's things where we should be learning and we're not very good at. We should be learning and saying, but my point being is you got to leave the door open because there are times when shit could go really seriously wrong. And if the Iranians suddenly, if you're wrong about the hope that, well, I think they're just for peaceful purposes because I'm going to, for some reason, believe, counter to their actions up till now, I'm going to believe the Iranian regime. So it's peaceful purposes. And then they announce that they're a member of the nuclear club. You got a shitstorm going on in the Middle East because it's not like the regional actors like the Saudis are going to go, okay, no worries. We're going to let Iran have the bomb and we're not going to get it.
Right.
Right. Now you're going to have multiple nuclear armed nations sitting in the Middle East and
At odds with each other.
And I don't know that that's a really good scenario because you're inching closer to, use of a tactical nuclear weapon, right? Like Putin's already in his moronic puppet Medvedev, keeps rattling the nuclear sable. Remember, we'll use a tactical nuke maybe. You start getting closer to that, and that's a real problem. So I think there are times when you gotta step in an intelligent way. But you got to be pragmatic about what that means. And so what I'm saying about with Iran is we didn't really solve anything, right? And nothing will get solved. The Iranian population isn't going to have a better life until there's a change in that regime. I'm not advocating regime change unless it comes from inside Iran, right? And that's what you'd like to think maybe at some point they rise up and say, fuck it, enough's enough, right? Yeah, but that hasn't happened, and despite people hoping it would happen.
Yeah. It's very. It gives people a lot of anxiety when we think about all the possibilities of all over the world, all the different things that are happening. Whether it's Ukraine and Russia, Iran and Israel, it's constant. What's going on in Gaza? It's like everything is. It's just like this constant feed of doom.
Yeah.
That if you're paying attention, and you kind of have to pay attention a little, because it is kind of crazy, and it could affect your life.
Which is, I think, why we're so quick to want to glom on to what's happening with Epstein or what's happening with the Intel assessment of them, because it takes away the focus from there's shit happening in the world. They could create bigger conflict, right? It could drag us into something bigger.